We're not putting that our soundboard out of business. I just do it.
I can't hear you though.
That's okay. Don't worry. We have a picture. That's why he's not out of business. All right. Good evening, Monadnock region. Welcome to the 51st episode of Go Mo Tonight, the Monadnock region's only locally focused weekly comedy podcast. We're here, as if you couldn't tell from that delightful intro music, in what our loyal listeners affectionately know as the Space Lounge. Once more, I'm your host, Chris DiLoretto, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host,
Zoe Roten-Heinzman.
And boy, do we have a lot to talk about this week. We are broadcasting tonight, a little bit off our usual schedule. Usually it's Thursday night. It's actually Friday night, February 3rd. Groundhog Day +1 in the groundhog worshiping calendar. It's almost 11 p.m. and we are broadcasting right now in the middle of like the polar deep freeze of 2023. Mount Washington has already set records up for America. I think I saw Dan, our good buddy Dan Cesny. If you're ever interested in Mount Washington, buy his book, dancesny.com. 108, negative 108 on the summit.
It's the last I saw. Yeah.
Crazy. And even here in humble Peterborough, it's supposed to get down to like with the wind, like negative 30 or some shit.
Oh, it's below that already.
Yeah?
I think, it was supposed to hit like negative 40 wind chill. But like these numbers, I don't know if you feel this way, but like they're not real numbers in my mind. Like I don't know what this means. Like it sounds cold and big, but like I have no frame of reference to what that would be like. I'm not going to go outside and find out.
Yeah, no. And it's like, so earlier I was outside and it was late enough because it was a, kind of a dramatic and weird temperature drop throughout the day where it started off real cold, like real effing cold this morning. And then as the day went on, just like kind of like mercilessly like drove downward. Right. And like the wind is whipping all day. Right. But it was late in the afternoon / early in the evening when like my car temp finally was saying like 0. Right. So that's without the wind chill. So, and according to AccuWeather, that's when the wind chill was down to like negative 10, like, or whatever. And like, I don't know. It's like once you get down below like 5 degrees, like to me, it all kind of feels the same. And like, I know you like die faster in it. Like if you like hang around, and you just are exposed, but like going from like the house to the car, and whatnot, like it's real cold, but like, I don't, you don't feel like, in mere moments, I will have hypothermia kind of thing. I don't know. That's just my take on it. Like, I just remember, and thanks to climate change, this was a much more common thing back then. But I just go back to, our favorite nostalgic time besides the 90s, the Bush administration. When I was like living in Boston and going to school there, right? And like, we were just talking off the air about not having cars. Like, none of us had cars. We were always waiting for public transportation. Like subways don't have heat, in the stations, most of them anyways. The cars themselves do, but not while you're waiting. Right. And, every year back then, unscientifically, of course, there would be like at least a week where it was like 0 or like -5, -7 out or whatever. And, like I said, being in the city and living that kind of public transit life, you're out in it kind of a lot. And we weren't even that smart. Like, and I'll give everybody credit. I always talk about the ugly winter garb, but the flip side of it is that people here do sort of understand how to dress warm, in a safe, you know what I mean? They are well adapted here to survive in the negative temperatures. In the city, everyone's still trying to look good. Nobody's got wool underlinings and you know what I mean? Like,
I do. When I lived in Boston, I did not even have snow pants. I didn't
me
get snow
neither.
pants till I moved to New Hampshire.
No, yeah.
I could have used them too. I was like, how do people live with their legs this cold all the time? I just walk
Yeah.
around with numb legs.
And just to show everyone that I am a fair-minded man, I do see this as the other side of the pendulum. Like around here, I think that, we're way too far over on the comfort and safety over appearance side, right? And it's just all, puffer jackets and, ugliness and whatnot. And, way over on the other side is the city mindset, which is just, we don't care at all about being comfortable. And that isn't that fun either if you have to spend a lot of time in it. So I'm actually a secret closet moderate. I'm actually looking for middle ground here. Like, I want you to try to look good, but don't completely kill yourself over it.
Yeah. Put your wools on under your jeans.
Yeah. Right. There's ways. There's absolutely ways. So that's what that's my frame of reference, I guess, is what I'm saying. And so we used to do it and it sucked, but like, I honestly, and again, I'm not someone who hangs around out in this either way. So this is not a safety recommendation, folks. Like, don't take this as good advice, right? But I am much more uncomfortable when it's like 28 to 34 and like moist in the air than I actually am like below 10 degrees. Because when I'm out there, then I'm like, I know it's going to suck. Like, I know it's kind of going to hurt. So I'm like prepared, and it does. And the air is just, it almost feels like you're on a different planet, kind of, it's like a different sort of atmosphere, but with almost total absence of moisture. I feel like it doesn't creep into like my fingers immediately. Like, it doesn't.
Yes.
There's a certain thing about it. So I'm not recommending it. I'm not minimizing this or saying anybody should go outside, or that we're not all fucked if like the tree falls down and the power goes out and we have no heat in the negative 32, because that's serious, obviously. But just in terms of like, if you got to go run out and grab something, like, as long as your car starts and like the house doesn't lock behind you and you're not trapped outside for the whole night without a phone or something. Unlikely scenario, but barring that, you can kind of get by. Still, I think we have like the garage heat on, which we never put on, just because there's pipes and shit, and we, might make the faucets drip like you're supposed to, but it's weird. And then it's going to be over though. Like, it climbs back up to 0 around noon tomorrow, and then it just it does the thing in reverse. It's like this like slow creep up, and then like secretly, like 24 hours from now, it just skyrockets and it's going to be 40 on Sunday.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, the negative 15 or whatever Peterborough is supposed to get tonight, that doesn't, like, I feel like that happens like once a year, at least
not usually double digits, not usually, like with wind chill double digits.
In Francistown, when I lived in Francistown, I swear it was a yearly thing that it would
I'm used to,
down to negative 10.
As a lifelong New Englander around this like latitude or whatever, I'm used to like 1 or 2 or up to a week of like single digit negatives. And if there's wind, there's a wind chill of double, but like this, like the actual temperature is like negative 12 and the wind is making it negative 30 is a little more Mount Washington-ish than like,
it's the wind. It's the wind that I think is like worth talking about. But I swear that I have seen the thermometer dip to like negative 10, negative 15 when I lived in Francistown.
I'm sure you've seen it. Yeah. I don't know if it's annual, but I'm sure you've seen it. Anyway. It's not unheard of, for sure. But I guess we're just going a little bit further than the norm here today. So, last thought on that though is sort of just that the winter people, and I swore, and I'm not breaking my oath, that I wasn't going to really ride the winter people this year. And keep me honest here. I think I've kept that promise. As I noted in a prior episode, it hasn't been that difficult. I don't deserve that many accolades much of the time, so I'm not being critical here, but I just want to put out there that the real winter lovers out there who just talk about how we're not going to get a deep freeze. And I guess we're still probably not, but we're not going to get any snow and all this stuff. Well, I don't know how long it's going to last. And obviously it came later than you wanted it to, but we've had like 3 weeks now of like real winter, like not strange, warm climate change New England winter, but like cold and snow and ice and right. I mean, it's here. They're not getting nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's going to last, but
there's really only like 2 good days for cross-country skiing this season. So if you're one of those people, it's kind of sad.
There has been only 2 good days?
Yeah.
How come?
Because of like the quality of the snow and like the ice.
Oh, because is it because it's thick and like
it's just like really icy. So you can't really ski so well.
That is, well, I do feel bad. I because I said I would this year. Maybe I'll do it again next year too. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I can do it for charity or something. You know what I mean? Like maybe we can get people to like pledge money if Chris is nice about skiers and snowmobilers and stuff for a second year in a row. So I am being nice.
And wait, are you being nice to snowmobilers too? Those are in your charity circle this year?
You know what? If I'm going to accept one side of things, it
all right.
And I while I make allowances for myself with regard to a little bit of elitism here or there, right? It does feel a tiny bit too classist to me in this case, given that I hate winter sports of all kinds personally, not that I'm griping this year, to say that I will give like the skiers and snowshoers a pass and like the snowmobilers don't get one.
Okay.
I mean, I don't like snowmobiles really. I don't want one. I don't want one in my yard. Growing up, we had, at the same time though, I was about to say, growing up, we had snowmobilers would cut through like the edge of my parents' yard all the time. I didn't mind that though. I was about to say I don't want them doing that, but like I didn't love it. But it's one of those things that some people would get really bent out of shape about. That like, and this was everyone in my family. My mother would just worry that they would like run somebody over sometime, but that was never a real concern. They always stayed on the edge, and they would have seen somebody rather than just driving over them, and so it's not a big deal. So yes, I extend my goodwill to the snowmobilers as well, even though I hate little motorized things. Not my favorite thing, but you have a right, and you want to enjoy the winter for some reason. You have my blessing. But let's transition to talking about more warm climate, warm season things that we have in store to look forward to, because tell us our top story for the week this week. Big news.
My goodness.
Big news. You might have missed it.
Yes, this was I guess semi-officially announced during last week's budget hearing for the Recreation Committee. There are, again, officially no lifeguards at Cunningham Pond. They're not even asking for money in the budget to hire them. It's not going to happen. It's a done deal.
So, parents of Cunningham Pond, victory is ours without even having to fight. And isn't that what Sun Tzu said? was the ideal scenario, is that you don't even have to fight. That's, you wrote The Art of War, but he always said, you don't want to have a war if you don't have to. You just want to win without fighting. And that's what's happened here. The merits,
yes,
just overwhelmed, and the fact that they know that they can't find anybody. So we have that on our side. If there was I will say, if there was 1 million teenagers who had taken a lifeguard course, banging on the door, we probably still might lose this argument. We would certainly have to fight for it, I think. But they know that that's not the scenario, for better or worse. Kids just don't want to work. No, I'm sure. I'm just joking, everyone. I'm sure that's not why that is. I don't really understand why that is, but I don't think that. So I'm just joking.
But there were a few questions. The select board, one of the select board members asked if that would deter people from wanting to go to the pond.
Yes, our friend Terry Burburner.
Several of us in the audience had to bite our lips and tongues to not laugh out loud at that suggestion.
That's our, for those who don't know who Terry is. That's our esteemed select board chair, Tyler Wood. And I think I don't see Tyler at the pond, so I don't think he knows the culture and everything. So right. I don't blame him, and he is, no offense, Tyler, but he's not one of us. He's not a millennial parent.
It's true.
And so he's not in the milieu, and
he just doesn't know how many of us have agonized over the presence of the lifeguards.
Yeah,
not making fun of him personally for asking the question. It's just funny, how much we've all talked about it and wished for it, and
yeah. So I understand why he doesn't know the answer, but I sent him a message and I was like, people will. So I understand why he would ask. I don't think we've said exactly what he asked, but what he asked was, would this deter people from going to the pond? And, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name, our esteemed director's name.
Oh, Lisa.
Lisa, sorry. Sorry, Lisa. Lisa, who was giving, for context here, we're talking about, any of you who may have seen or heard of our special episode with Andrew Osterman, in which we went through his analysis of the DPW presentation to the Joint Select Board and Budget Committee weekly meetings that they've been having, and the departments are presenting these things. Those have continued. And I sent Andrew a message before we got on the air to see when we can get him back on, because everybody, all kinds of exciting groups have gone, police, fire. This week it was rec and library, but somewhere in between there was a bunch of really interesting departments. Planning, which planning small, but interesting. And it includes the economic development portion, which, as we know from last year, is a very controversial subject at times. But anyway, so I didn't get to watch most of these. I didn't see them, but I did watch this hearing, which just happened this week. So this was Tuesday, the 31st, I guess. And so again, Joint Select Board and Budget Committee, and Corinne presented for the library. Lisa presented for the rec committee. And, I do want to emphasize that, sometimes I might sound a little critical of, the rec committee and rec department, but I want to be clear that it was a very good presentation. I thought that the explanations for things were legit. I have serious disagreements still with the sort of general philosophy with regard to, the bunker / community center. But that aside, the budget was adequately presented. The programming was well supported, well defended, well demonstrated for its benefits. Very, very good presentations. Yeah. So Tyler was asking his question, just to make sure. I don't remember what Lisa's answer was, because yes, we were all just thinking in our heads, dude, I messaged him on Facebook Messenger. I was like, more people will want to come to the pond because there's no lifeguards. And he didn't dispute it. He just seemed like genuinely he didn't know, which is totally fair. Due diligence. Great job, select board. But other interesting questions, though, in this process, there were, and again, it's okay. I'm giving people a little shit here, not trying to make a big deal out of it, though, because it's important for members of the budget committee and the select board to ask questions in these hearings. That's what they're for. But some of the questions just crack me up, and I'm not going to single anybody out, because, to be honest, even though I watched it, I don't remember who said what. But like, there was just some funny nickel and dime questions. Like, the library presentation was so cut and dried. Well done, Corinne, but so good that, like, I don't even have any real comment on it. Library's great, and they're going to continue improving, and they're all on their game, and the money's well spent, et cetera, great. But the question was, she was running through, I think, the different revenue sources in terms of the rooms available in the library for rent, and that the downstairs room, like, one is called the classroom and one is the boardroom or the conference room or something, right? And we used to rent these for various things, which we haven't done in a while, but sorry, library. But they're like $25 for the smaller one and $50 for the other one for 2 hours, unless you're a nonprofit and it's free. And, like, someone just asked this real, like, question to the effect of, like, are these nonprofits taking advantage? Like, well, like, what if they come in too much, or they ask too much of the library or something like that? And, like, even that, no surprise, Corinne had a great answer for, because it's actually capped at like twice a month that they can have it for free. And then after that, they have to pay, and they don't demand like catering from the librarians or anything. So it's just kind of, but I get it that we're talking budget and we want to be protective of the taxpayer dollar and stuff, but, like, that just seems like a weird place to really hone in on, because even if we were to charge every nonprofit who comes in there, how much lost revenue are we gaining? Especially since several of them would probably find someplace else that was free, right? Because they're nonprofits and they're meeting there because
right, they
can't pay $50 to $100 a month for meeting space.
Right. There were a few similar questions about rec things too. Like, right now we get one car sticker per household free for Cunningham Pond. The second one you have to pay for if you want another car sticker. But somebody on the budget committee was like, well, have you thought about charging for those? Have you thought about raising the price on the pool? Like, just, have you thought about how you could get more money from people?
We just want you to at least be able to answer that you have considered whether or not to do that. And that, yeah, that's another one where it's just like, we have, it reminds me of the idea where, like, there's no affordable housing. I mean, it's become a joke now, so I don't think people actually say this in earnest anymore, but it was much more common, like, say, post-financial crisis, when people like you and I were in our, like, mid to late 20s, and, most of us weren't making that much money, bad job market and shit. And, again, housing was cheaper then, but, like, none of us could buy a house and, like, stuff like that. And it was always like, well, that's because you spend too much on coffee. And then later on that evolved to, like, the avocado toast thing a little bit later in the decade. But it's that same concept of where, like, all right, like, I could save like $40 a month if I didn't buy the coffees, but, like, my deficit for, like, what I need for this big thing, whether it's a house or anything else that you're telling me that I should have, or, like, saving half my income or some crazy shit like boomers would always say, right? Is like hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month. So it doesn't matter how much I nickel and dime myself on my coffee treat. then I'm just denying myself coffee, and I still don't have the house, or I still don't have whatever it is I'm supposed to have. Right. This is that, like, the town budget, we can say that, like, yeah, it keeps going up, and property taxes keep going up, and it's clearly a concern of a huge segment of the town, right, that this is happening. But doing this, if we were to say charge everyone, instead of giving every family in town one of their vehicles free to go to the town pond, we're just killing one of the greatest town services that we have in this town, is our exclusive free pond, right? And it wouldn't make a dent in anybody's property tax. Like, not even a tiny little bit. Even if you did, you got that like $2,000 or whatever that would amount to be from like every department somewhere, right? It's like, ooh, like, we worked really hard and like found $25,000 in our like $50 million budget that we, you know what I mean? And in doing so, in several cases, we made things shittier. Like, we took away services that are legitimately good, that we are able to provide without much financial or labor burden, right? And the budget's the same.
I mean, like our property taxes wouldn't go down by $10. The $10 that we would then be having to spend to go to the pond. Like,
exactly. Right.
It's not a help.
We're paying more money to the town to not pay less. That's so. Again, I'm not trying to be a dick, but like, please consider those things when you ask those types of budget questions, because that's just it's like stealing some joy for like no benefit whatsoever. And then the other one was the farmer's market question. Because of course the farmer's market happens on the lawn of, and I think in other months inside, right? Don't they do it inside for a month or something?
It's a great question. I think that they might do a month.
Yeah, so sometimes inside, but mostly out on the lawn of the community center, the bunker. It's one of the reasons people tell me we can't knock the bunker down, because there's no other lawn in town where this could possibly take place. No other stretch of grass with a parking lot could be found. But anyways, that's where it is, and they pay for it. It's not a town farmer's market. It's I assume it's like a 501c3 or an LLC or something that facilitates this market. And they pay.
They rent the grass.
Yeah, they rent the grass. They rent the grass every week, and we get revenue from that. Somebody was just like, it was another one of those, like, are we getting enough out of the farmer's market? Like, if they get more vendors, they get more money, and are we charging them more? And I mean, Lisa's answer to that, I do remember, and it was great. She was kind of like, you know what? I've already like broached this subject with, I think she said the name of the, and she's like, they're like pleading with me because they're like, we can't even afford the way it is now. Like, we can't, you'll break us if you go above anymore. Which I think is probably true. How much margin could they I don't know. Because if they charge too much fees to these vendors, then they're not going to break even or make money. Right. And it's a low margin game, a farmer's market, for everyone involved. So, and it's not a big commercial enterprise. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of,
honestly, like when we've done sales at farmers markets and other vending places like that, it's like
few bucks.
We often cover the table fee.
Always,
but
yeah. I don't think you ever lost money, but
if you start counting like your time, your labor.
Sure. Oh yeah, we weren't. No labor. Way. No way. Yeah.
And think about a farmer like having to like harvest for a market and then sit there for hours. Like, no way.
No way. No way.
No one's getting rich at the farmer's market.
No, and again, that is absolutely. I think if you polled the people in this town of all stripes, they would all say that that's a benefit to the town to have a farmer's market there.
Yeah.
And that getting like an extra couple $100, I don't know what, $100 extra from them a week or whatever over however many weeks that they even go, like, so maybe half the year, you get like less than $1,000, less than $500, um, and potentially break them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's the
You'd
same thing with
potentially,
the $10 Cunningham Pond sticker. Like, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of the town budget, but it might actually matter to like the person who's now having to pay this extra thing.
yep.
Those
Mhm.
things matter. Even just psychologically, the thought of like having to pay for the pond,
It would bug me.
it would bug me.
I really, really enjoy it as like a free service provided by the town. It does. It matters to me. It's free,
Yeah,
and I'll gladly pay for the second car. Like I
sure,
don't mind that at all.
sure.
That's totally fine. And, but give me that one sticker.
You know what else I would pay for at the pond is a hot dog. I
Yeah.
know I just like this hot dog machine is lying fallow and like they should just set that up in the
You know,
little lifeguard shack. Like I would buy 10 extra dollars worth of hot dogs over the course of the season.
I would probably spend $10 on hot dogs in any 3-week period at Cunningham Pond in the season, 100%. And that is a great point, because if we want to talk about making an impact on things, like, let's actually like compare things like, so, all right, like maybe we could get like 2 grand pissing everybody off by making the town pond no longer a service of the town, essentially. Like, it's, yeah, like, access granted by right of living here taken away. We take that away, maybe we get 2 grand. But like, hot dog selling is a high margin endeavor, even if you're only charging like $2 a hot dog.
Yeah.
And even
Little
if you
sack of chips.
like, even if you personally are anti hot dog because it's like processed meat and all that stuff, um, hopefully nobody's offended by this comparison, but it's kind of like when this is a real thing where it's sort of okay sometimes for Mormons to invest in businesses like on the edge of gambling sort of thing, even though they are against that. There's arguments that are made sometimes as to why they can make money from it. So think like that. If you hate processed meat, a lot of other people don't. They're still going to buy it. If they don't buy it from you, they're going to buy it from somebody else. And you could make like I said, way more than 2 grand just selling hot dogs and bottled water and
Yes.
little sodas. Maybe you could get little like Hoodsy ice cream cups. I mean, like, you could make so much money just selling a few snacks
Oh
in
my
there.
gosh, popsicles at the pond? Who would not
Popsicles at
buy
the
a
pond.
popsicle?
Who would not pay $1 for like a freeze pop at the pond?
For real.
For
Easy.
real.
Easy
Easy,
money.
easy money, easy money. And, I know they have their own private little Wi-Fi in there, so they could definitely run a square machine, you know?
Uh-huh.
So there's no excuse there. So like, yeah, like you want to like raise money or something like that. Like, let's be creative. And I mean, like, and that's not I say creative even, right? But like, that's not a thing that a town doesn't do. Like, like for example, huge operation is Swansea baseball, right? Remarkable little culture. It's like, being an anthropologist, just going there to watch your kids' games. And I'm not going to get into all the reasons why that's true. But my point here, though, is that they have just like a very simple little concession stand, and they're slammed and they make bank. Like, they even because the baseball games are in the morning sometimes, right? They even sell little egg English muffin sandwiches, for a couple of bucks. And
Nice.
like, everyone goes like and I'm not even asking for egg sandwiches, right? You know what I mean? I'm not even asking to go that far, but this is doable, by a town. And it's a very simple thing. And that could raise revenue and like be applied to costs and like, offset. People mentioned in the meeting again that like at least once or twice a year there's vandalism on the pond, so there's kind of like preventable upkeep costs, which of course like we want to deter the vandalism, but like assuming that maybe like once or twice a year someone is going to do a antisocial act to our pond, young people, I have a generous heart for you know what I mean? Like I don't want them to do it. I want them to stop doing it, but once or twice a year to me is like an acceptable cost of, like if you were in retail, you might call it shrinkage. You know what I mean? Like it's just the acceptable level. Like, that people are going to steal X amount, or, theft, damage, and like X, Y, and Z is going to cut a little bit off. So we accept that we know that that's going to happen. And this could just cover that. It could cover other things. I don't know. Much better than like enraging everyone and just taking the joy away by charging a fee to the people that use the pond. Anyways, besides that though, I thought it was a nice, other than when we talk about, and I guess let me just make just a couple quick points because I don't want to have a whole other episode about tearing the building down, but like on both sides, both from like the rec presentation and from like the BudCom and the select board, there's a few ways that everyone's talking about this that I don't really like. And that's from, I think the rec department side, it's more of a, we need to do this kind of thing. And I understand that that's their position, but given that I don't think that's really a subject that's been adequately debated at all, I would prefer that it be talked about as less of a given and less of a settled matter, less of a policy of the department. I think the department's policy should be a little more exploratory at this stage, rather than necessarily advocating for money to be spent for this, right? But on the flip side, when I heard questions and comments from, I think someone and maybe it was the select board, made a joke about how I don't think that we're trying to get money for a fire station. Like, I don't think people are in the mood for more capital expenditures and everything. But I think we've talked about this on the program before. You found this in the original vote of the town to take over the armory, which is that there's a stipulation, and yes, it can be undone. It could be undone by the voters, and I think it could be undone even by the select board by vote, but it would have to be voted on. But this town agreed in voting to take over the armory and make it a community center that tax money would not be spent on it
right.
at all.
Right.
So we shouldn't even be joking about having a vote for capital expenditure, because you have to vote on record to change the will of the people. Granted, it was 20 or 30 years ago or whatever, so you might argue that times have changed and we don't give a shit what the Peterboroughians of the 90s said, but I think we should. I think it's where you have to at least give them their due.
I do think that joke was about building a new community center. I think they were saying building a new one is off the table because of the fire station.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, I kind of take some of it back then.
There were a few comments that seemed like confused about the rule about not spending tax dollars, but I don't remember where they came from.
That I got is it didn't seem like people really knew that, and I want people to know that is this town did vote once upon a time. We can unvote either through our representatives or ourselves, but we did vote. The collective we, obviously we weren't here, but that we weren't going to use public money on that building. And so again, I love the rec department. I think it was a great presentation, and it demonstrated the wealth of programming and services that are available to us in this town at, frankly, very little expense overall.
Yeah.
And
I have to say, Lisa works really hard on the budget and is very
Mhm.
thoughtful about it,
Yeah.
and talks to the committee about it a lot, and really is, she keeps a very flat budget. This is my second budget season on the committee, and she works like super hard to make that happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, and it showed. I felt like that came across in the presentation and in the Q&A. And so I like it all. I like it all. I just don't. But like when we talk about these like little things and like big things and stuff, like a big ass savings would be not saving that building. It would be a big ass savings. And I'm telling you, if anyone did a real analysis, not of like not making a list of like all the things that would be fucked if we didn't have a community center, but like give me two alternatives for each one of those things on that list. I bet you could find them, even if one of those two is always going to be a school and the school doesn't want to. I'm telling you, we can't let that happen because that's not in the public interest. And I truly believe that if we're going to maintain this position from Conval of we don't want to help you, we don't want to help you taxpayers save money, even in ways that are not related to our school budget, which we won't let you touch. We need to start voting people in who have the right mindset on this. So again, I said that another episode. We don't need to hash all that through again, but I did just want to mention that. But yeah, great presentation. I hope Andrew will come on and talk about it. I want to hear his take on police and fire, planning, and I wish I remember it was an interesting one that was presenting along with planning. This is going to kill me. I got to look it up. Jimmy, the producer, isn't on. Although, as I think I might have said last time, this new platform, which we may or may not keep, has the function where if we had a Jimmy, the producer, he could actually join this broadcast and he could be like in here with us, but you guys wouldn't see or hear him, and he could like mess with stuff and make sure we're good and like look things up for us, and I think even talk to us, but I don't think he'd be recorded, so like we'd hear him but you wouldn't, just like a more professional show. Not that we're not professional, but we just have a lower budget. Yeah, minutes, packets, and recordings.
but I think
Oh,
I
it was
think
IT.
oh
Yeah. IT
that
was
is
it was
interesting.
Josh. Yeah, all the technology of the town. I'm sure
That
that
is
was an
interesting.
interesting presentation. Infrastructural shit that is critical, but we don't see or talk about really most of the time.
Yeah.
Um, probably pretty interesting. And again, I want to hear if Andrew has ideas about it or thoughts about it. So,
Yeah.
Andrew, if you hopefully, I mean, this episode will come out in like a week, so or more. So hopefully by then you've seen and responded to my message, and maybe we've had you on.
Hopefully.
Oh boy, but it did occur to us as we were preparing to go on the air tonight that without even going through the paper, we just off the top of our heads, there's actually a few noteworthy happenings, we might call them news, I guess, that have occurred since the beginning of the year that we haven't actually touched on. We've been saying nothing's been going on, and maybe in the like dark tide of nothing going on, none of these things individually could withstand that to like, get mentioned on the program. But now that there's like 3 or 4 of them, it's sort of like, all right, there's a few things we've neglected to talk about that people who have an interest in the cultural and civic life of the area might want to know. So there's been a couple of business ownership changes since the first of the year. Brady's a favorite of many, and one of the only places, if not I think maybe besides Mi Jalisco, maybe, that has like sports games on. So for people who like to watch sports at the bar, one of the only places that has that. I don't know if they still will. I don't know. So it was purchased by Eliza Allen, co-owner of Aesop's Tables, another local favorite, right? And again, we didn't bring the paper up in front of us, but a partner who I don't think is the same co-owner who co-owns Aesop's.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I could be wrong about that. Sorry if I'm lying. But in any case, so big change over there. The former owner, we'll call him Barry. I don't think that's his real name, but I don't know it. But he's a favorite. Sorry, Barry or Dennis or whatever, if I'm getting it wrong. But seems like a great guy. People have a lot of really, really great things to say about him, and he's just been doing it for like 30 years or some crazy shit like that, and it's time to retire.
His name's not Brady?
No, it's not. No, it's definitely not Brady.
It'd be funny if it was Barry. He's like, I'm Barry, who owns Brady's. It's just so close. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Okay, Peter Cummings and Eliza Allen are the owners of Brady's now. And, oh God, I'm out of free articles. Come on. It's okay. I don't know if you guys know this, but you can, not that I'm recommending this, but it's just something I've noticed is that when the little JavaScript comes up saying on the newspaper's website saying that you've kind of hit your limit and you got to log in or subscribe, they dim the background, but it's actually really easy to read, especially on a large screen. So
totally
I'm
just keep
kind of
scrolling.
complaining for nothing. I didn't make that up. His name was Barry.
Oh wow! All
Isn't that what I said? Oh man,
it is what you said. Nice job.
Wow. It's okay. I kind of thought I was being flippant to make that up. No, his name was Barry York. 23 years, and this officially happened on January 1st.
Was he the original owner? Do you know?
I think so, yeah, because the third paragraph states, for more than 2 decades, Brady's American Grill has been a staple restaurant in Peterborough, after saying that he ran it for 23 years. So if there was a prior owner, they only had it for a few years based on those 2 statements, adding them together.
Gotcha. Brady's is one of, I guess, the few restaurants in Peterborough that I've never been to.
I've been there a couple of times, but never to the bar, and I've never experienced like the bar culture there. I'm curious as to whether it will change, but I will have to rely on the testimony of others to let me know if that's the case, because obviously I didn't make it in and I have nothing to compare it to. York said he was working 80 to 90 hours a week for like 20 years. So he's,
wow.
Hey, and isn't that really that's a good segue to our next topic, because I think in one of the early articles about, our good friend Willard Toadstool putting Toadstool up on the market, which I think he actually did like a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point, something like that. Yeah. He said something almost, he didn't say 80 or 90, but I think he did say 60 or 70 hours a week. He was working all the time and he was just ready to, which again, I totally get it. I work really hard to avoid working that many hours in a week. And so I can certainly understand getting up there being like 60, 65, 70. I don't know how old Barry is, but I think Willard is. I think one of the articles published, he's 70 or something. He's up there. No offense, Willard. You're a spry gentleman. But you don't want to be doing that. You gotta take it easy a little bit. And so totally understandable. But that has finally happened. I think there was a couple of potential buyers over the months since that announcement was made, but Toadstool, more recently than January 1st, has now changed hands.
But it is official now, right? Like there's no more Willard to be found. Correct.
Except for Nashua. So right. Willard, so there's 3 Toadstools. There's the Nashua one, which a lot of people know as the Milford one. It's on the same stretch of Amherst Street / 101A, but they moved from where they were solidly in Milford couple miles down the road in what's over the border into Nashua. And then there's Keene, and then there's the heart of it, like the key Toadstool, which is in Peterborough, of course. And so it's Peterborough and Keene have been sold to the Sister, I hope I'm saying that right, Sister family of Peterborough and Dublin. And wow, Willard was doing that for 50 years.
Wow.
50 years. Congrats to you, Willard. Willard's been a good friend to us. He's agreed to carry our Monadnock Underground published books in 100% of cases that we've offered them, including back when we had a magazine without a title on the cover, which is kind of ridiculous. He still bought some of those. And
a book without a title on the spine. And
and a book without a title on the spine. We started off, we made a couple rookie mistakes back at the beginning, but Willard was forgiving. Drives a hard bargain in terms of, getting his end of it, but, he's a businessman, and that's why I was able to do this for so long. But they're keeping the staff on, and it's Emerson Sister is kind of seems like he's sort of the spokesperson for the family. And perhaps he's kind of in charge. I'm not sure. He said his parents are also involved. So he may be, of a millennial or Gen X persuasion. Ages aren't listed. But Willard and his family, his real last name is Williams, not Toadstool. They're keeping the Nashua one, and they're changing the name to Balin Books or Balin Books.
Oh, right.
Probably Balin.
That detail. How do you spell it?
Balin, like the dwarf.
Oh.
I don't know if that's what they're naming it after, but it is spelled like the
sure they are.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I would guess. I don't know. He's obviously a literate fellow. He must know what he's doing if he spells. Unless there's some other significance of Balin that a literate man like him knows that I do not. You know what I mean? It might not. It might be more than just the dwarf.
I bet it's not. But
I bet you're right.
Yeah, I think it might be the only one. But this makes me wonder, do you think that the new Toadstool is going to keep Aesop's in it?
Oh.
And like juxtaposing these stories just put this thought into my head.
Is that a preemptive move? That's an interesting idea. You never know. It would not be unreasonable for the Sister family to potentially want to take the cafe in-house, and do it if they have an interest in that sort of thing. Maybe they want to do it themselves. I think that the current regime at Aesop's is not been there even as long as my tenure here. I mean, it's had other owners in the past, I think, right? 5 or 6 years ago, I think maybe was the last time. I could be wrong.
That sounds about right though. Like when I first started exploring Peterborough before I moved here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I remember the time when it was closed for a while because it was changing
in between. Yeah. So, I mean, I look forward to, reaching out to the new owners with something. It's another one of those things that's kind of on our ever growing to-do list as, the crazy winter kind of gets away from us. But, we do want to reach out to them and introduce ourselves and kind of establish a similar relationship, to what we had with Willard in terms of, being a local publisher and media company, and, would love to collaborate on events, and we'd love it if you would open later and do events at nighttime. And if you have, I recognize that this might be a bit of an economic risk to try, but like, especially these days, but like, man, it's another one of those things about the aughts and before that, like, nobody remembers, but like back in the Bush administration, the point of a coffee shop was like to be there at night and have the coffee to like make you awake so that you could like talk to your companion or do whatever you were trying to do because you didn't want to be tired, whereas now it's like everybody's like, oh, I cannot have a thimbleful of caffeine after 11 a.m. or else I will be up till 4 a.m. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't believe that it was like lead in the air from leaded gas that made people able to drink coffee always and go to bed all the way up until like 6 years ago when everyone decided, I can't, it's so strong. I can't handle it. I don't know. And even those people back in the day used to drink decaf. They would still like just like socially have the coffee anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe
Nothing
we can
wrong
bring
with a
that
little
back.
secret decaf.
Yeah, maybe we can bring that back.
Boy,
Um,
that would be so nice. I love
wouldn't that
this
be cool?
idea. There's not that many places in Peterborough to go at night.
No, there's not. And I don't, I'm not always the one to promote the say like dry option of things, but there's a lot of people who are like into either like full sobriety or things like dry January, and I don't know, I think they do it in another month sometimes or whatever, I don't know. And there's definitely no place for those folks to go at
I
night
mean,
unless
even if you're not into it, maybe just sometimes you don't feel like
yeah,
maybe you just would rather like you want to be out
once in a while
talking.
I do just want a coffee and not like
Yeah,
tequila, you
right.
know?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's
Doesn't
true.
seem
Even
like
even
that
I,
crazy.
it's not that crazy. No, it really isn't. So it's just things to think about, but cool opportunities. I'm excited to see what they do with Brady's, and if it changes or stays the same, or I'm sure it's not going to stay exactly the same, but like, does it keep the same clientele? Do they start putting music in there sometimes? Because we have lost at least one musical venue recently. Who's to say? A lot of
Oh,
possibilities.
okay, but this reminds me, speaking of musical venues, so I mentioned this to you the other night, but I found out recently that
Hmm.
Peterborough used to have a heavy metal club, which I just think is amazing. It was called the Rec Room, WRECK, and it was apparently in the plaza with like where Ponchos is now, there was like a different pizza place there, and I
Uh-huh.
think the Rec Room was like somehow
Between them and Yan Yan.
maybe like somehow the Rec Room was connected to the pizza place, or like a piece of the pizza place was sometimes the Rec Room, but I just kind of love the fact that this was a thing, and
I
I
do too.
want to know more about it.
I do too, and um I don't like heavy metal, and I don't
No, I
want to
don't.
go to a heavy metal show, but I'm
Me either.
fascinated by the idea that they're. I mean, we've referenced this. I've thought about it a lot because it's clear that like Peterborough's always been like kind of quirky and like a city state unto itself in comparison with even other areas in the Monadnock region, right? Never mind New Hampshire. It's very different. But the ways it was different specifically in even like the 90s is very different, I think, from today. And one way to think about it, and this is just a minor slice of it, is that like just from a cultural perspective, I believe Harlow's existed contemporaneously. I mean, this is like, it feels like we're talking about like the Paleolithic age, and like there was a time when Triceratops existed alongside Tyrannosaurus Rex. But like there was a time when I think there was like Harlow's. There was this mystical folkway place that was like a
Yes.
famous folk music place of the East Coast, basically, for decades, and a heavy metal place in the plaza, all at the same time. And I think that's fascinating and cool,
Yes, me
even
too.
if I don't want to resurrect exactly most or all of those things.
Right.
I want to get back to a place where there's enough people who want to go see heavy metal and folk and like, dare I say, like jazz and funk or something, that there's places that are just doing it, and creating a little thing, and that we don't just leave that, sorry Luca, to Keen. you know I'm not sorry to Eric because he scheduled Thing in the Spring on the same day as Children in the Arts Day again, for the second year in a row, and that is just such a fuck you to the town that like I don't know why you would do that. It's like, I don't know, it's like like cursing someone at their funeral. Like it's just so obviously disrespectful when there's like so many weekends in the spring.
Mm.
He used to do it in June too.
That's the thing about
It's
it that
very
makes it seem
spiteful.
on
Like
purpose.
it's just
Yeah.
I just can't believe it's a mistake, and really resent it. I just don't like that. Um, it's mean spirited. It's not goodwill
Yeah.
amongst all of us, you know. Anyways,
But
the
I want to hear stories about the rec room if there's
yeah. Does
people.
anybody out there have any
I,
stories about
I want
this?
to know about this. Like,
Please,
get in
we do.
touch.
We will. You know, if you have a lot of stories, if you're like somebody who like frequented it and you were part of the rec room culture, we would even have you on for a short segment on the show, just to, you know, we could plumb your memories. I am real in a Peterborough heavy metal. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's learn more about that sometime. And then the last couple bits of news are, I guess, relatively minor in and of themselves, and they may not affect you directly at all, but I think that they are interesting, especially when combined together, in just looking at the economics of our region and the different businesses that rise and fall and like compete. And so the two businesses that I want to mention quickly are what's it called? The Wolf Pine Hollow
The
Farm.
farm at Wolf Pine Hollow.
The farm at Wolf Pine Hollow in Hancock, and Ben's Sugar Shack, right? That's Ben's Maple Barn. Ben's Sugar. What the, why am I
Ben's
blanking
Sugar
on
Shack? I think that's
okay,
right.
I don't know why I'm second guessing myself. Ben's Sugar Shack, in Temple, and when it comes to the farm at Wolf Pine Hollow, this is a controversy that I was only recently made aware of. I didn't. I've seen them posting things on Facebook, like they will sell you a ticket to take pictures in front of sunflowers in the sunflower, which I have such mixed feelings, because like on the one hand I'm like, I don't want to like buy a ticket to take a picture in front of sunflowers, but a field of sunflowers is really cool, and I don't know anyone with one who will let me do that. And you know, it's New Hampshire, so I don't want to like trespass and have somebody shoot me over a sunflower selfie, you know, or trying to like recreate like Terrence Malick, like Tree of Life kind of thing. Like, so maybe I would buy a ticket. I don't know, but that's what I associate them with, is like those types of things. They sell agricultural experiences, and that's they build themselves as, they'll tell you that they're agritourism, and they came here to Hancock from somewhere else, New York or something, after doing market research and determining that this was a place where they could make money doing this, and they clear cut like a huge stretch of land near the downtown, which is, I think, the initial cause of the controversy, less so than the ways that they make their nut. The clear cutting of this part of Hancock was, I think, of great consternation, because Hancock is, as I understand it, one of the most, if not the most, like persnickety town in our region about maintaining every detail of its downtown, and not, you know, like they don't want people to build fences that are not like properly like wooden or whatever, that they would have built the fences with when the town was found. Like they're very serious about it in Hancock. And now you're allowed to cut trees down on your own land, though. So that's not really a town thing. So they bought the land and they did it because that's their right. And as many subsequently pointed out after the outrage, it's like, yeah, this is shocking to you Hancockians who drive through the town and are used to having trees there. But as I love to remind people, this entire region was like 100% forested not that long ago, totally clear cut. And the I mean, deforested. Sorry, it was
I thought
deforested. It
you were
was pastoral.
starting with like the primeval forest and then it was
No,
default.
no, yeah, no. But as we know, even the primeval forest was basically like tended and controlled by the natives,
Absolutely.
you know? So it
Yeah.
wasn't just, this is like the wildest forest we've ever had since humans have been here in New England, really. Um,
Probably. Yeah.
and maybe we like it that way, but all that is to say is that it's not unnatural and it's certainly not inconsistent with the history of our towns to level all the trees. That's, you know, and with the amount of forest that we have, and the fact that it's growing and there's all kinds of conservation land, let them do it. That's okay. People have to make money too. That's this America, man. Like, I mean, got to, like, I believe that. And it's New Hampshire, live free or die. Like, you got to let people do shit like that. But anyways, they got into, I think, stemming from the just shock of the townsfolk. There were several, I think, multiple like zoning board, planning board issues. They were trying to open the latest one was that they were trying to open a tasting room.
Right.
And the town was basically like, that's a restaurant. You're not zoned for that. You didn't get a permit for that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all this after, I think, other fights that really had kind of a adversarial relationship between the select board and this new agribusiness. But they won. They cited a change, and this is part of why they did this. New Hampshire changed their law a few years ago to promote businesses like this and to allow them to operate, and basically say that things like tasting rooms, like towns cannot deny them because they're not a restaurant if they are truly promoting like a farm experience, even if they're not like a real farm. Like, the law is very much for this. And again, these are well-researched folks. They clearly saw this and saw the opportunity. And the zoning board and the select board, if I'm getting the story right, in Hancock, basically acceded that, like, yeah, you're right, the law does say this. And the select board went so far as to say, like, we kind of want to reset here and have like a friendlier relationship, So that's one example of a local business sort of fighting against certain town boards and prevailing. A starker example, which I love, I just always find this story so delicious, is hometown boy. He's like our age, Ben Fisk, of Temple, New Hampshire, one of the greatest entrepreneurs of our generation in this region. Started tapping maple trees around Temple on his neighbor's property when he was like 4 years old. No, I'm just kidding. I think he was like 10, but like, let's just make him legendary. Like he was like Abe Lincoln. He couldn't tell a lie, and he was tapping maple trees at 4 years old.
Yeah.
And
born with a frying pan on his head or whatever.
Exactly. Born with a frying pan on his head, a blue ox named Babe, can't tell a lie, tapping maple trees, making maple syrup before he's even in kindergarten, right?
His maple, if you've ever had his syrup, it will cure all of your illnesses.
It's very.
You should have tried that before you had your surgery. I don't know why I didn't mention that to you.
I should have. You're right. And it is. I make a lot of jokes about how I like the high fructose corn syrup better than the real maple syrup, but his syrup is very good. But he grew this into like a full-on business, and there's lots of people in New Hampshire who sell their own farm-made maple syrup, but he's got distribution now, and he wanted, in accordance with his growing stature, he wanted to like open like a giant, like he's just got like a little hut on like a back road that people can visit right now. And he wanted to expand that into like an emporium on the side of 101, right where 101 meets Route 45, right at that little intersection there. And Temple tried to fight him on it, and the town was pretty split on it. And elections happened, and some people were voted out and some people were voted in, and the people who were voted in were of a particular orientation towards this project, and the votes were had again, and the project was allowed to go forward. I'm not criticizing anybody here. I admire the hustle tremendously, and if you drive past this thing on, it's being built right now. and it's huge. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say emporium. Like, this is like the castle that maple syrup built is going up there. And I also, for the record, I don't live in Temple, obviously, but whatever zoning or whatever they were trying to go after him for, I mean, for those of you not from this region who are listening, I don't mean like an interstate. I don't even mean like a turnpike or a parkway or anything, which is usually what I think of when I say highway. But like for around here, 101 is considered a highway. It's a main road. There's all kinds of things from like industry to commercial and sometimes residential along that area. And putting an emporium there is consistent. And I'm on a zoning board, so I know these terms and how you think about things. It's consistent with the character of that area. And so I don't think it's an illegitimate ask to be able to, again, run your business as you see fit and build your emporium. But if you're somebody who's really paranoid about like the influence of business and government, you won't like this. But I don't know. I think it's interesting, and I don't really have a particular problem with it.
It seems a little different when it's such a small town thing.
Yeah, it's not, heaven forbid, a Walmart or something like that. It's
But I mean, particularly like the influence of business in the politics, like.
Sure. Yeah.
There's no like dark money. I don't know. Maybe there is.
No,
but...
and everybody that we're talking about here, even if the Wolf Pine Hollow people came from out of town, these are all residents that are fighting for their own rights as resident. And like, I know we like to, hate outsiders and people from New York and Massachusetts and all that, right? But, at the end of the day, they have people born in New York and Massachusetts also have rights, and they can move here and they can buy property here and they can have a business here, and they don't get handicapped in any way for not having lived here for a certain amount of time. Unfortunately, that's just not how it works. So everybody here, I think, is existing within the bounds of, I think, their right as a citizen to do. And it's just interesting to observe how these things go down and how these forms of, new forms of commerce, emerge and decline and whatnot. So there is actually, it's been a quiet ass winter, but there's been a few things of note that have occurred.
Yeah.
Also, I haven't read his full message, but Andrew did get back to me. He will be on with us soon. And he sounds like he's got plenty to say. That's why I haven't read it all yet. So hopefully, maybe even by the time this episode comes on, we'll be recording with him, and we'll get something else out soon. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that unless something changes between now and then, our plan right now is for our next episode, as we mentioned in episode 50, we'll kind of celebrate our crossing of the 50 episode mark and Zoe's lucky number of 52 with our 52nd episode, and make use for the first time of a new feature available to us on this platform, should we decide to keep it, of having a call-in show. And so around the time this episode comes out, we'll be putting an event out there on social media that'll have a link in it. You can sign up to it, and that will get you into the audience for our live recording. And we'll probably have a couple special things on offer, but one thing we're definitely going to make ourselves available for is the dispensation of good advice. As you know, if you've listened to this program, we conclude each show by recommending that you please take good advice, but we don't necessarily make the claim that it's ours you should take. Just find it somewhere. But this one time, we'll say, if you call us asking for our good advice because we tell you to do this all the time, and maybe you don't have another source, maybe in your life, good advice is really hard to come by, call us up. We can help you. And this is our way of giving back. One of our ways of giving back. So that's coming up. Anything else that we ought to cover or talk about? We can talk about crocodiles next time. We learned some facts, guys, but
we did, but we're well over an hour at this point. So
over an hour. I have a lot to say about the crocodiles. So and our relative risk thereof. So we will save that for next time. And yeah, so again, special thanks to our sound lord, Chad Patterson, whose wonderful Hot Dad Rock band, Down by 10, by the time this episode comes out, we'll be able to say that we have finally gotten to see them in Milford at Riley's Place. I wish I could tell you to go to it, but it will be far too late by the time you hear this. But we're going to rock out. Maybe we'll even grab some special video and put it up for you so you know what you're missing if you didn't get out there. But Chad's a great guy. He is helping us evaluate this platform. He edits all these episodes. He's going to make sure that everything is legit. And, toward that end, actually, he's going to make sure that this music isn't too loud, like it sounds snowy right now. Again, great fellow. He is also available to help you in this. Go to studio117.net.com. That might set off a few filters that you don't want to set off in your browser, especially if you're on a work computer or you're a child. But he can produce for you, he can mix audio for you, consult with you on how to set something up, how to clear a room, how to make your band sound like a real producer would, because that's what he does. So he's got all the services on there. Band is also for hire if you can book them, because they're pretty much got stuff to do every weekend. So special thanks to Chad on that. Now look, we're heading into the year. It's February now. We got all kinds of stuff coming. We're going to start reminding you again that you can sponsor this program. Lots of people listening to this, regular listeners. We're like Morning Joe, right? Morning show in the morning. Their mission from the beginning has not been to reach everyone, but it's been to reach the people who make the decisions and make the calls. So those are the consumers you want. So advertise with us. Very cheap. Reach out to us. You can do that. Okay. We'll remind you a little bit more aggressively from here on out. Lots of things in store for the future, though. Okay. So we love you. Thank you for joining us here in the Space Lounge. Hopefully it's warmer the next time we speak. Be on the lookout for a special event that will allow you to join us here in the Space Lounge. And, until we can give it to you, until we can come back together, until you run into us on the street, find it wherever you can, even if it's hard in your life. Please, for the good of society, for the good of us all, take good advice. That's our show. We'll see you next time here on Gomo Tonight.